Welcome to Introduction to Whitebox Learning Engineering, checking for and correcting specifications to your dragster. We have designed a dragster now, and we've done some work with that, and we've saved the dragster. At any point, you can always go through and check and see if your dragster meets specifications. Specifications, you'll also hear the term specs. It means the same thing. There's a shortened version of specifications. These are guidelines that have been set up by your instructor for you to meet. Between minimums and maximums, you have to fall between those for various different parts of your car. So your car has to fit so that all cars are designed into the same category or same qualifying. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you how some of the common specs that are not met, how to correct those specs, how to find out if you are in spec, and things like that. So what I've done is I've taken one of my cars, my Billy Bob cars, and I have made some out of spec things on it, and I'm going to show you what we have here. So what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm in engineering, and I'm just going to bring my body blank out like I have always, and get us where we normally are. And then I'm just going to put my axles on so we know where our axles are. And just so you can see that I do have a car in here, and I have my refined solid on, so you can see that it's in here and everything is set up. So I'm going to put that in there, and the car looks good. Hey, it looks like it's ready to race. Let's make sure it is. So in order to set and find our specifications, we go to outputs. And in outputs here, if I click on this, we're going to come up with another tree, and we're going to look at our first area here is reports. And in reports, we want to go design specifications. So we're going to click the icon right there, and you're going to notice a graph comes up, or a chart comes up with variety of design specifications that need to be met. As we look at this, you're going to see on the first column the object that we're talking about. And so we have segments for the body and axles and wheelbase, wheels, power, eye screws, budget, stuff like that. Some of these things we'll never have to worry about meeting or coming in or out of specs because the wheels are all set up for us already. The eye screws are all set up, budget is usually all set up, and things like that. There are some that will and then other areas will have multiple things come up as might be out of spec. As you notice, I have red writing in here. Those are the things that do not meet specifications, and I'll show you how we know that other than just the red writing. First off, the second column here is the minimum. So this is the smallest thing something can be, or the shortest, or something like that. So let's just take a look at the length since it's here at the top. It says my minimum length is 202 millimeters. So I can't make my car shorter than 202 millimeters. And that would be interfere with axles and stuff like that anyway. So you shouldn't never really have a problem getting lower than that. Maximum is 303 millimeters. Remember back in a video I said you do not want to go to the maximum of the block because the block is 304 point something. That would be too long. So if you're over spec, it would be over 303. When this last column says designed, what designed is this was what the car that we're checking is actually at. So right now the car is at 251.55 millimeters. So that means that falls in between the 202 and 303. And that's what you want to look for in this design column. All these numbers in the design column need to fall between your minimum and maximums in here. And again, when we look at the black numbers, they do. When we look at the red numbers, they don't. So let's just take a look at a couple of these right now. So width of the body at the front axle. Okay, it says it's 41.2 minimum, 42 maximum. We're at 39.66. Okay, and width of the body at the rear axle, 41.2, same thing. 42, same thing. But we're at 40.09. Okay, so let's take a look and see how I can fix those two. So I'm going to show you those two right there because they're both in the same profile. So notice it's width of the body at each axle. So we're going to go back to engineering, And we're going to open up the top profile because that's where we see the width of the body. So I'm going to shut that off. I'm going to turn on my tools here, and now see how we see the width of the body from one side of the body to the other side of the body. That is the width. It tells me that my width is not correct at either axle, and here's the reason what we have. If you take a look at the front axle, see this point right here and see how it's not sitting on that dotted line right above it, right there. That means that this line goes at an angle and that whole axle is not coming through an area on that block of wood that is the correct width. Easy to fix is just make sure you remove your point, grab that dot, pull it down till it's on the dotted line. Once you've pulled it down and it's on the dotted line, you should be okay. Now remember, we also said we had a rear axle issue. Same thing here, but a little slightly different. Is notice this dot is sitting right on the rear axle. If it's sitting on the rear axle, it means it's coming to a point on the axle and the whole axle isn't at the width of the block. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this axle or this dot just in front. When we went through the videos before on how to design, remember I always said you had to have a dot behind and a dot in front. And again, when you move that dot, make sure that those dots are always pulled down. And I'm just going to re-pull this one down just to be sure we didn't even mess with it, but just to make sure that that is okay also. So what I've done is now I've corrected by pulling this one down and pulling this one away from the axle. Let's see if that's corrected our problems. So I'm going to click apply, click done. Remember, you always got to do that. You go back to outputs, click on the design specifications, and those have disappeared. The width of the body at front and the width of the body at rear are now within the specifications that were set forth. So that was our problem. So whenever you come with that, take a look at your top view. We're going to skip mass for now because some of these changes we may make in here or further down here may end up adjusting this, because notice we're not very far off of spec. We got 0.185, 99.18 or 99.85 and out of 100, so we're very close to getting it right there. Maybe just adjusting some of these will allow us to move our mass up. So let's talk about, jump down to these here. We have hole depth and wall thickness. So let's talk about hole depth. Minimum of 50, maximum of 52. We're designed at 49.62. So we're short, we're under the minimum. Okay, and this is where we're going to have to go and find that. So go back to engineering. Okay, and we are going to look at all three profiles because I don't know where it is. What we're talking about is this dot right here. This dot needs to be all the way to the back of the car, remember, on the dotted line. So we're just going to make sure and just go through and pull that back just to make sure it is right. And apply, done. Now I'm going to check all of my profiles just to make sure. Oh my gosh, look at this. This one doesn't look like it's all the way back. So let's just take that, pull that back. Okay, apply, done. And then I'm going to shut that one off, and I'm just going to go to the upper profile just to make sure, and I'm going to pull that one back too. Apply, done. And I go back to my outputs, check this here, and my hole depth is now correct. Notice it's at 51. It's right in between your 50 and 52. So that's how you correct hole depth, making sure your back dots on any of your three or all three of your profiles are all the way back. So if it doesn't correct with one profile correction, check the other profiles. Let's talk about wall thickness. Oh, by the way, notice we moved the hole depth. Our mass just popped up, and now our mass is above where we need to be. So we are in between our 100 and 165 right now. So we've corrected that just by correcting a different problem. Go into wall thickness. Wall thickness, minimum of 4, maximum of 10.9, and we're at 3.84 millimeters. So what we're going to do is we'll go back and we're going to look at our wall thickness. And what that means is our thickness around this piece. We want to make sure we don't have a line that comes within 4 millimeters or less than 4 millimeters away from any one of these. So we don't want the wall around our CO2 cartridge hole to be too thin. So I'm going to turn the wrench on here, and you know what? It might be possibly this one right here. Okay, it might possibly. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move that up a little bit, maybe move it out, and maybe that did it. I'm going to apply. I'm going to be done. Just like the hole depth, I want to check my other ones just to make sure that I'm not too close. And maybe I'm just going to pull that one down a little bit just so I know I'm not too close over here. Okay, just so I'm not too close. And you know, as I'm looking at this, this looks like it got moved too, so I'm going to move that down. Okay, so I'll move that down too because we have a different problem there. Apply, done. And then I'm going to check my top profile, same thing, making sure I'm not too close. So maybe I just move that away, a little bit farther away. Okay, apply, done, check my outputs. Now my wall thickness is in spec, 4.49 now. So I've only got one red left to do. So rear axle hole from rear car rear. This is the one that trips a lot of people up because no matter how much going back to your engineering and adjusting lines on any of your profiles is not going to work. What that one means is that you did not set up, I'm going to done this, you did not set up your blank setup correctly by changing this number to 76.16. Once we change that to 76.16, apply and done, check our outputs. Everything now is in spec. I don't see any red on my car. So your best thing to do now is go File, Save. Save and enter competition. Now here's the interesting thing that I've just showed you. Remember I told you I opened up Billy Bob Revision 1. That's the one I made these changes to, just so you had that. When I go and now do a File, Open, and open Billy Bob, there's Revision 1. And now here's a Revision 4 that I just saved. This is actually the current one. This is the one that I made the changes to Revision 1 now. If I go back and open Revision 1, and I check the outputs, well, they're actually all the same. But I've just now saved Revision 4 as the newest version. Revision 4 is your newest version. So that, thank you for watching. Please proceed with the next steps as assigned by your instructor.